Book 10. Loving God above all, the greatest commandment. Welcome to this video on Book 10 of the Treatise on the Love of God by Saint Francis de Sales. In this part of his masterpiece, Saint Francis focuses on the central commandment of our Christian life, the commandment to love God above all things. This divine commandment is foundation of all that we believe and practice. Everything in our spiritual life flows from our love for God, and this love becomes the key that unlocks true holiness. In Book 10, Saint Francis explains the nature of this love and the 2 degrees of perfection we can strive for in fulfilling this commandment. Today, we will walk through the key themes of Book 10, exploring how we can learn to love God with all our heart, soul, and strength, and how this love helps us live fully in His grace. The sweetness of the commandment to love God. In chapter 1, St. Francis begins by emphasizing the beauty and sweetness of the commandment to love God above all things. Love, as he explains, is not only the greatest commandment but also the most delightful. Why? Because love is what we are made for, and in loving God, we fulfill the deepest desire of our hearts. St. Francis explains that loving God is the soul's natural inclination because we are created in His image. He compares this love to a tree that naturally grows towards the light. Our souls are drawn to God's goodness, love, and beauty. St. Francis reminds us that this commandment is the source of all the other commandments. It's the foundation upon which our entire moral life is built. Without love, everything else falls apart. The commandments become heavy burdens and our spiritual life feels empty. But with love, even the most difficult sacrifices become sweet. To love God above all is not just an obligation. It is an invitation into a deep and intimate relationship with the Creator. When we love God, we give Him the best of ourselves, and in return, He gives us the fullness of His grace. This commandment leads us to heaven but must be lived on earth. In chapter 2, St. Francis reflects on how this commandment prepares us for eternal life. The saints in heaven perfectly fulfill the commandment to love God because they see Him face to face. Their love is full and complete. However, while we are still on earth, our love for God is imperfect. We are distracted by worldly cares, pulled in different directions, and often struggle to love God as we should. But St. Francis encourages us, reminding us that even though our love is imperfect, God accepts it when we strive to love Him with all our heart, soul, and strength. This chapter teaches us that the commandment to love God is not reserved for heaven alone. It is meant to guide our lives here on earth. Every act of love we perform, every time we choose God's will over our own, we are preparing ourselves for heaven. St. Francis encourages us to see every moment of our lives as an opportunity to grow in love for God. Whether in prayer, work, or relationships, everything becomes a way to express our love for Him. Though our love here on earth may be imperfect, it is still precious in God's eyes because it is a reflection of His love for us. Balancing our love for God with love for others. In chapter 3, St. Francis de Sales addresses a common concern. How can we love God above all things while still loving others? Doesn't loving God require us to abandon our love for family, friends, and the world around us? St. Francis reassures us that loving God does not mean rejecting all other loves. In fact, when we love God above all, it purifies and strengthens our love for others. He explains that when we love others in God and through God, our love becomes more selfless and genuine. Instead of loving people for what they give us or how they make us feel, we love them because they are beloved by God. In this way, loving God above all does not diminish our love for others, it elevates it. St. Francis encourages us to see all our relationships as opportunities to share God's love. Whether it's in our family, our community, or our work, every act of love we offer to others can be reflection of our love for God. The degrees of perfection in loving God. In chapter 4 and 5, St. Francis explains that there are different degrees of perfection in loving God. The first degree involves those who are just beginning their spiritual journey. These souls love God, but their love is still mixed with attachment to other things. Like young plants, their roots are not yet deep, and they are easily swayed by distractions and temptations. St. Francis de Sales uses the image of a bird trying to fly but still held back by strings tied to its feet. These souls want to soar towards God, but they are held back by their attachments to worldly things. The second degree of love is for those who have progressed further in their spiritual life. These souls still love other things, but they love them in God and for God's sake. Their love for family, friends, and their duties is no longer self-centered, but is rooted in their love for God. They have learned to order their loves correctly, placing God at the center of their lives and allowing all other loves to flow from that central love. This is the stage where we begin to love God with greater purity and our hearts are less divided. The highest degree of perfection, loving God alone in all things. In chapter 6, St. Francis describes the highest degree of perfection in loving God, where the soul loves God alone in all things. This is the love of the saints, who see everything through the lens of their love for God. Their hearts are so united to God that they no longer cling to anything apart from Him. This doesn't mean that they reject the world, but that their love for the world is entirely purified and directed toward God. Everything they do, every relationship they have, and every choice they make is centered on God's will. St. Francis encourages us to aspire to this highest degree of love, even though it may seem beyond our reach. He assures us that with God's grace, we can grow in love day by day. The more we surrender our will to God and seek to love Him above all things, the more He will draw us into His perfect love. And while we may not reach this level of perfection in this life, every step we take toward loving God more fully brings us closer to Him and prepares us for eternal union with Him in heaven. Conclusion: living the commandment of love. In conclusion, Book 10 of the Treatise on the Love of God teaches us that the commandment to love God above all things is not just a rule to follow. It is an invitation to live a life of deep and intimate union with God. St. Francis de Sales reminds us that loving God is the foundation of our spiritual life. And it is through this love that we grow in holiness and become the people God created us to be. Whether we are just beginning our spiritual journey or have been walking with God for many years, this commandment remains the guiding light of our lives. It calls us to place God at the center of everything we do, and it promises that in loving Him, we will find the fullness of joy, peace, and fulfillment. Let us strive to live this commandment each day, trusting that God will give us the grace to love Him more and more. Thank you for joining me in this reflection on Book 10. God bless you. Live Jesus.
To find you call me to a love so sweet, to place your will beneath my feet. In all I do, in all I see, your love alone will set me free. Commanded high, with joy I sing, to love you more than anything. Love above all, Lord, you are my guide. Your will, oh God, in you I abide. Never joy, never recall. My love, my all and all. Teach me to love with all my might. In you alone I find my life. Other loves around me grow. In you, my God, true love I'll know. My friends, my life, I'll love them too. But first, oh Lord, I'll follow you. In all I do, in all I see, your love alone will set me free. Commanded high, with joy I sing, to love you more than anything. Love above all, Lord, you are my guide. Will, God, in you I abide. In every joy, in every call, you are my love, my all and all. Teach me to love with all my might. In you alone I'll find my life. In other loves I see your face. In every heart I feel your grace. But you alone my soul's desire. Ignite in me your holy fire. Love above all, Lord, you are my guide. Will, oh God, in you I abide. In every joy, in every call, you are my love, my all and all. Teach me to love with all my might. In you alone I'll find my light. Loving you I found my way. Forever yours I'll always